If the Raptors really are pursuing Giannis, do not trade Scottie. Whatever Masai does, just do not trade Scottie. Welcome to Amateur Answers. It's a new segment on the channel where I read your comments and react to them. If you want one of your comments featured on next week's version of this segment, then comment something down below. And while you're there, especially if you enjoy this episode, make sure you do smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for more Toronto Raptors content from Amateur Hour Sports. But let's read the whole comment here. It's in reaction to a video I did this week talking about the possibility of the Raptors trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo. It is certainly plausible Giannis could want to move on this summer, and it's certainly reasonable to suggest the Raptors have enough assets to make that trade happen. But Winner One, who is a longtime viewer and a big supporter of the channel here, does not want to trade Scottie Barnes to make it happen. If the Raptors really are pursuing Giannis, do not trade Scottie. And I know a lot of people want Scottie out of here, and if you saw the other comments from the video, which we'll get to, people do want Scottie out. But that's just because y'all just hate on him and don't see his future leadership potential. Whatever Masai does, just do not trade Scottie. But we all will see anything as possible ever since that Luka trade. Yes, I have to preface everything I say these days where I'm like, that's not going to happen. But it's like, well, if Luka Doncic get traded, then anything can happen. Yes, anything can happen here. But on the topic of Scottie Barnes getting traded for Giannis Antetokounmpo, if that's the sticking point, I very much I think we're beyond, there was the offseason where Kevin Durant was up for trade, and the sticking point for the Raptors was Scottie Barnes was not going to be involved. I completely supported that notion at the time, but now that we have some further evidence surrounding Scottie Barnes, kind of makes a little bit more sense now to trade Scottie Barnes, especially Giannis is younger than what Kevin Durant was at that time, and Giannis, still seemingly in his prime years at the moment, has still not dealt with any injury concerns that would keep him out of things. I think it's a more safe trade, than the Kevin Durant trade. And I think at this point we have a better understanding of who Scottie Barnes is as a player. He's already going to be getting paid a ton of money rather than being on a rookie contract. So the circumstances changed a little bit. I don't think he'll be a sticking point here, and I think that there is a very reasonable outcome where the Raptors do actually part with Scottie Barnes to make a trade like this happen, if it does come to something like that. But wasn't the only person who didn't want to get Scottie Barnes traded for Giannis. We have official GOAT 8701 saying, personally, I'm not trading Scottie. I'd rather see Scottie run point. Bucks need a point guard after the unfortunate injury that happened to Dame, and adding Barrett on top of that with 4 firsts and 2 pick swaps is a huge package in which I don't see how they say no unless other teams throw away their entire future. So I proposed 2 trade packages. One of them was Scottie Barnes and RJ Barrett alongside 3 firsts and 2 swaps. The other one I proposed was Immanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett alongside 4 firsts and 2 swaps. So the user here says that the Immanuel Quickley RJ Barrett package was 4 firsts. That's more than enough to make it happen, and the Bucks would absolutely say yes to that. I'm not so sure. I think a team like the Hawks could even offer up Jalen Johnson, Onyeka Okongwu, maybe even 5 first-round picks, and even then I'm not sure if the Bucks would say yes to that. And that's 5 first-round picks, and that's Jalen Johnson, who is such a fantastic young player. So complicated situation here. I do agree it's possible that Barrett, Quickley, and 4 firsts does get it done, but I've talked about the possibility of Barnes getting injured, but the user here wants Barnes to run point. And in this instance, if Immanuel Quickley isn't traded with RJ Barrett in the 4 first, now we don't have a point guard, so it's Scottie Barnes with to turn into the point guard. This season very much proved the notion I've had for a while that Scottie Barnes is just not a point guard. He is so much better defensively, especially when he's more focused on being a power forward, defending those areas, help defense forward, something I've spoken about for years and years and years, and finally not years and years because he's so young, but definitely for at least 2 years, I've been wanting this role for Scottie Barnes. Finally, we are seeing it on defense, and we saw an explosion of talent for Barnes on defense. Offensively, there's just not enough tools there to run point. Your point guard really needs to have pull-up threat, which Immanuel Quickley does have, and I'd like to see him use a little bit more. You need to have more pull-up threat and more three-point shooting threat, I think, to be a more successful point guard. You want to come around off a screen, and you want that player defending you to have to go over that screen. If that player goes under, you have to punish them by being able to pull up and hit a 3. Immanuel Quickley has that. Barnes does not. So for me, Barnes isn't quite suited to that position. Doesn't mean he's not a fantastic player. He's a fantastic player in a different position. But I think it would be a mistake by the Raptors to commit to a lineup where Barnes is the starting point guard. And I think this season was definitely evidence of that. Further on this conversation, we have a user here who thinks that, yes, If Barnes is the price for Giannis, you got to do it. We have Khris, 1984, sorry if I said that wrong, said Barnes for Giannis is a no-brainer, but the assets to part way in such a trade, plus the team depth, will be a challenge. So trading away a lot to make it happen, of course. If that trade happens, yes, Raptors could be near domination #1 in the East for the next few seasons on paper at least. Cleveland and an overtaxed Boston Celtics, who? So, yeah, if the Raptors were to make his trade, and let's say it's Barnes and Barrett and a ton of picks for Giannis, I agree. That is a contender, bona fide contender. Like, that's Immanuel Quickley as your starting point guard. Grady Dick is your starting shooting guard. Your forwards are Brandon Ingram and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Jakob Poeltl is your 5. That is an extraordinary starting 5. There is like a decent amount of talent off the bench for the Raptors. It definitely depletes your ability to fill out the depth because you've traded away so many picks for the future. Absolutely. But that is a contender. That is definitely a team worthy of being contender in the Eastern Conference. And I think it could get up to the levels of the Cavaliers and Celtics. I'd probably still favor them in market, but I think that they're getting close with that team, which makes me think it is something the Raptors should strongest consider pulling the trigger on. Another comment here from The Flash B6857, who's been a long-time viewer of the channel as well. If somehow they were able to trade for Giannis without trading Scottie, I would like to see the dichotomy, look at that word, between the two players. They do have similar play styles. However, I do believe Scottie, when in a smaller offensive role, can be a far more effective floor spacer. By pairing the two all-stars in Ingram and Barnes with a superstar in Giannis and adding spacing to the roster, specifically around the center position, the team would be a championship caliber team. The offensive fit would be clunky, especially without a floor spacing center and a point guard. So the rest of it's cut off, but this is the part that I wanted to answer here on the topic of a floor spacing center. I disagree that this is where the floor spacing for the team needs to come from. Because, like, if the Raptors pull off this trade and it's Quickley and Barrett and, like, they keep Barnes, let's say, so, you know, let's say the starting 5, there's not really a point guard there, but you have Barnes, you have Ingram, you have Giannis, and you have Poeltl. Not a lot of floor spacing in that group, but I disagree that the floor spacing has to come from the center position. We're very, very much seeing right now a shift back to the dominant rebounding defensive, like rim protecting big man. Like, that is the way the NBA is shifting back towards. In fact, like, we're getting back into an area where like 2 big lineups are coming back into fashion, which is very exciting to see a guy like Giannis playing with Jakob Poeltl. But like, yes, you need floor spacing, but also, like, to be a championship caliber team, you need very good defense and rim protection and pick and roll play, and Jakob Poeltl offers all of those things. So the solution to me absolutely is not for floor spacing, for Jakob Poeltl to get moved on for a more floor spacing sort of center. Like, there's even on top of that, those are very difficult to come into contact with and actually acquire. The floor spacing, like, yeah, that would be a problem with that lineup. Like, you'd have to find a point guard for that team. You'd have to find more floor spacing coming off the bench. But I disagree that that would be coming from Poeltl. I do agree the fit is clunky, but I think that trading away Poeltl would actually create more problems than it would actually solve in this situation. Next comment comes from Phoenix. This is a long time viewer of the channel, a day 1 viewer of the streams as well. It says the second best player in the world. Yes, yes, and yes. Brandon Ingram is literally Middleton and not washed. We saw how that pairing went in 2021 when the Bucks won a championship. That, and if we end up jumping top 4 into Dylan Harper territory, my God, what a core to build around. So I actually thought about this during the video as well, where Middleton, his body kind of deserted him in the later stages of his Bucks career, and it's probably a key reason why the Bucks never really got close to going back to winning an NBA championship. There was a lot of unlucky seasons for the Bucks. Like, I know they won a championship, but they probably could have won more if things kind of fell in their favor a little bit better. But I agree. The Brandon Ingram archetype compared to Middleton, like, it's definitely there, the comparisons, and I agree. Like, we saw how good of a fit Middleton was with Giannis. Brandon Ingram can do the exact same thing, so I really like the fit with Brandon Ingram and Giannis Antetokounmpo if he does end up on the team as well. Now we shift to a video that was the previous Q&A or amateur answers that we did in the channel. This actually almost led off this episode, so I was very interested in this comment here from Bruce Spicer 4114, saying, I'm so tired of RJ trade talks every single day. And then a few days later, I made another one talking about trading RJ Barrett to the Bucks. Sorry, Bruce. RJ has played his ass off this year, game in and game out. To trade him is a farce. American players overall don't want to be here. Kawhi Leonard won a championship and still left. Well, I mean, there are Americans who did want to play here, like, you know, Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. But, understand that they don't always attract American players. To have a homegrown player who led your team in scoring and played hard and proud every night is not an asset you trade. His dynamics overtake his contract. Good players can play in any system. RJ could and will adjust to Brandon, Scottie, IQ, or whoever. He will work hard to improve his defense. Keep this kid. So I understand why people really like RJ Barrett as a player. Not only is he Canadian, but he does embody a lot of the things that Raptors fans enjoy. Determined, hardworking player who has developed with the Raptors, who has molded his game to fit a little bit better next to his new teammates with the Toronto Raptors, did lead the team in scoring this season, but that only gets you so far, from a determination and a work ethic standpoint. But the Raptors are really seemingly trying to start to win games starting next season, and if they feel as though they can get a better team out of trading RJ Barrett, I think they're going to do that. And I think there is a recognition that the fit overall still is a little bit clunky. And it's not at the point where there's enough talent. When you talk about Giannis, Ingram, and Barnes together, that's clunky. But there's so much talent there that you kind of want to try it out to see if it can work. I'm not quite sure if Barrett, Barnes, and Ingram gets into that tier of it's just too good. You have to try and make it work together because there's so much talent there. That's where I kind of have a little bit of a disagreement here. I do agree that there's a lot to like about RJ Barrett, but I just don't think there's quite enough talent that pushes it beyond the point of thinking okay, I'm still not convinced about how this is going to work. I think the good news here for Bruce in the comments is that it's unlikely to me that RJ Barrett does get traded this offseason. So at the very least, we will at least get to see what it looks like together. And if RJ can improve in enough areas to differentiate himself to make this core really, really work together. And if so, that would be very exciting. I think we will get an opportunity to see that, which I think is a good news for people who want to keep RJ Barrett. But I think I'd be surprised if front office wasn't looking at this and thinking that RJ Barrett is a bit of the odd man out. But again, understand completely why people would be so inclined to keep him. We have Half-Eaten Sandwich 0, who says Brandon Ingram will be in the All-Star conversation. I think that's no doubt. Brandon Ingram, maybe not no doubt, but I would be very confident that Brandon Ingram was going to put himself into some All-Star conversations this season. Maybe not quite making the team, but he's been an All-Star once in the West. If he can stay healthy in this Eastern Conference, it's a little bit more open. I think if Brandon Ingram has a, Brandon Ingram caliber season, if the Raptors work to enhance his strengths, maybe we can upgrade the volume from 3 a little bit more. I think absolutely he'll be in a very, very strong All-Star conversation. But it's actually a chatter or a commenter that goes even further than this, because Bibsley99 says Brandon Ingram and Scottie, including injury replacements for the All-Star game, will both be 2026 All-Stars if the Raptors are at least a 6 seed or better due to the lack of forwards in the East. I think it'd be a bit tough for the Raptors to get both of the players in this, but both have been All-Stars before. Why not? If the Raptors are a top 6 team, I think certainly it's a possibility. This is a big proclamation saying they are going to do it, but they are mentioning this comment that it would also take injury replacements for that to happen, which, granted, that could be something that comes to fruition. I can see it. I think Ingram's got the better opportunity. Perhaps Barnes fills in as an injury replacement, but I do think this combo is going to work well together. I do think it will work well. Barnes played very, very well when he played next to Pascal Siakam. Barnes was an all-star playing next to Pascal Siakam. Siakam still has tons of talent. He was an all-star this year, might be all-NBA this year, so still tons of talent in a player like him. So no problem with a guy as talented as Brandon Ingram playing with Barnes, and no problem with a guy as talented as Barnes playing with Ingram. I think they absolutely can both be all-stars, but I would favor Ingram getting there before Scottie Barnes. Another comment here from Shannon Ferguson, featured in all 3 of these episodes now. Me and Shannon have kind of disagreed with this stuff in the conversations here, but I do always appreciate the counterpoints being brought up, and Shannon Ferguson has been watching the channel for a very long time, so I appreciate that as well. But this is in reaction to Immanuel Quickley. The previous amateur answers that we did here led off with somebody calling Immanuel Quickley potentially toxic asset down the line, and I really do like Immanuel Quickley as a player, so I push back on that. But Shannon Ferguson notes that 42% from the field isn't good, and that's what Immanuel Quickley's field goal percentage was this season. Defense is below average. IQ didn't really look like a top half of the league point guard. In regards to toxic asset, it's interesting that anyone who would think RJ was ever a toxic asset would be of the opinion it's absurd to speculate about IQ being won at a much larger contract and not even the production RJ had in New York. So this comes to me. I don't think I ever, maybe it is about, maybe it's about somebody else. I never called RJ Barrett necessarily like a toxic asset, but I did when the Raptors traded for him. I didn't think it was a good asset. I thought it was New York kind of getting off of a not so great asset when they traded RJ Barrett to the Toronto Raptors because of his efficiency. And efficiency is a very broad term, but like it's 2025. We absolutely need to go away from using field goal percentage as a marker of efficiency. It's just such a misleading statistic. Let's take like a very extreme example, but like this will paint the point I'm trying to make here. Steph Curry shoots 44.8% from the field, okay? 44.8%. Steph Curry is one of the most efficient players in the entire NBA. He shoots well above 60% true shooting percentage, which is a better determination of efficiency, true shooting percentage, because it encapsulates two-pointers, three-pointers as being more valuable than two-pointers, and free throws, because your efficiency in getting to the line is actually very important as well as a basketball player. If you don't want to count free throws, then you can just do effective field goal percentage, which is twos and threes, but it does value threes more heavily than twos because, yeah, threes are worth 3 and twos are worth 2. That's one more point for shooting a 3. Anyways, Steph Curry shoots 44.8% from the field, but he's a very efficient player. DeMar DeRozan shoots 47.7% from the field. Are we about to sit here and pretend like because DeMar DeRozan shoots that much better from the field, 47.7 compared to 44.8, that DeMar DeRozan is a more efficient player? No, absolutely not. DeMar DeRozan takes the easier shots from two. Two-pointers are easier to make than three-pointers, and therefore are worth less points than a three-pointer. So for Immanuel Quickley, his true shooting percentage is up like 57-ish%, which could still be better, but that's decent. That's decent. So to say that he's not an efficient player because of a 42% field percentage is incredibly misleading, not really getting the full picture of a player from an efficiency standpoint. So again, a little bit misleading here, but I wouldn't go as far as to call Immanuel Quickley a toxic asset, and I really don't think I've ever referred to RJ Barrett as a toxic asset. Like, that's a very, very strong term. Like I said in the previous Q&A, that toxic asset is something that makes the rest of the team worse. Like, he brings down the people around him. Like, you could say maybe, like, it's still even extreme, but like, example top of my head is Russell Westbrook in LA with the Lakers. That might be the closest, but yeah, I don't think RJ Barrett was a toxic asset coming out of New York. I didn't think he was a good asset. I thought he was a bad asset coming out of New York. Definitely proving me wrong on that one. Speaking of toxic asset, we have Gregory here, one of the amazing members on the channel, saying he will never be a toxic asset. He could become a victim of toxic fans and toxic media. I very, very much agree with this one. It feels like a lot of the time Raptors fans want to believe there's a toxic asset. They want to like villainize a player on this team. For years and years, it was Pascal Siakam, and it was unbelievable that since Pascal Siakam has been branded as this by a lot of people as a toxic asset, as a bad asset for the Raptors. Since being labeled as such, he made another All-NBA and All-Star appearance with the Toronto Raptors, and has now left the Raptors and been an all-star with the Indiana Pacers, and he has a very good case of making an all-NBA team this year with the Indiana Pacers. So this happened to Siakam. This has happened with Fred VanVleet, where like Fred VanVleet has gone to Houston, and there's still these labels against him. But the reality is, when Fred VanVleet is playing, the Houston Rockets are better. They had a bit of a mini free fall mid-season in win-loss when Fred VanVleet got injured. Like, it's just these types of players. Raptors fans want to villainize a player, but the reality is Immanuel Quickley is a good player who got injured. Unlucky. Like, the first year of his career, he got injured. The first time in his career, he has gotten injured, and that is used very strongly against him. I just have an issue with a player with things beyond their control and actually playing good basketball when they're healthy. I take issue when that player is consistently ridiculed by the fan base. Last one that we have here, we have LeBron fan 109. What are you doing on the Raptors channel? Saying, I love Scottie, but if he doesn't become... Love Scottie. What are you LeBron fan? I love Scottie, but if he doesn't become a 1A superstar next season, he and his contract are going to prevent us from winning a chip, and moves should be discussed. I don't agree. There's a lot of teams out there who have multiple players on max contracts, both of which can't be the number one player on the team. There are teams that have multiple max contract players who have championship pedigree. Barnes is 23 years old. He is nowhere near his prime. He's already been an all-star, and he is 23 years old. He is nowhere near his prime as of yet. So to say, like, okay, 1 year's time, he's still not a 1A superstar. He'll be a 24-year-old player who is still not even close to his prime, who's still years and years away from reaching his prime. I don't think that contract is going to prevent the Raptors from winning a championship, full stop. Like, the Raptors literally could afford to trade for Giannis this summer and have Barnes on his max contract, Ingram on his near max contract, and Giannis on his super max contract. The Raptors can afford all of those players on the team together. So it's not like this contract is crippling to the Raptors. Barnes is a very good player. He has showcased that in the past, and one would say for a player who is 23 years old, like he's 2 years younger than me here, one would say a player that young still isn't even in their prime and can continue to get better and better as the year goes forward. So to make the black and white statement, if he's not 1A by the end of next season, that's a bad contract. I just don't agree with that.